doing it on the testnet or on the...
The question is the application that we will build, will we be using the testnet for that? Preferably, yeah. And we can give you free testnet coins. I'll show you how to get those testnet coins in a very easy way up next. Any other questions?
So with the other local nodes, are they API on top of the base, or are they like totally independent, like they implement the whole thing?
The question is, the local nodes, do they have an extensive API, or are they just basic Bitcoin stuff? Is that it?
No, is it like you also need the first one, Bitcoin Core, and then the API that these other things provide, or they are effectively a full implementation of
The question is, do you need the local nodes to be able to interact with the services? No, those are two completely different things. What these websites do is they're basically running the reference code for you and giving you a way to interact with the service without the hassle of setting everything up on the local side. So all you end up with is a URL to get the balance for an address. Okay?
I was asking about the local nodes, like if you take, say, the Node.js or the Ruby one, do they rely on the C++ client also, or are they like totally full implementation of the...
The question is, the nodes that we talk about in Node.js, Ruby, and Python, are they relying on the same Bitcoin reference client? No, they're not. The entire idea behind them is to be a full node by yourself in that particular language. So that's why I say, the rules are in the Bitcoin reference client, they get updated pretty frequently. And these other repositories, they may not be updated as well as the Bitcoin reference client. So if you can manage it, just use the Bitcoin reference client written in C++. You can find the repository on GitHub. But if for some reason you want to play in your own language, just pick one of these. Any other questions?
Well, would you say that for learning the Bitcoin core code, it's easier to use one of the alternatives because they're better written?
Yes. So the question is, it would be better to use the to compare the different implementations out there and then learn from them. Definitely. That's one of the ways I learned how to code back in when I was 11 or 12. Yeah. So we're going to move on to the next one. Now, this is not the only thing that you want to do with the Bitcoin protocol. Some of you want to use the Bitcoin protocol for what it's known best for right now, which is financial transactions. In order to do that in a very easy way, there are not too many options for you. But the options that do exist, if I can say so myself, they are good. There's the local Bitcoin node. So it's the Bitcoin reference client. It allows you to run a wallet locally. A lot of services that exist out there, including, I think, a popular tipping service. I can't name the tipping service, I guess.
Change tip.
I didn't say that.
Oh, yeah.
So they run on Bitcoin D, I think. So what they do is they just run this reference client, and they're doing everything through the reference client. So it runs the wallet for them. They can make the transactions through it and so on. It does okay for maybe 10,000 transactions a day. There are problems like you need to keep a valid backup of a local database file, which is called wallet.dat. If you lose that file, you lose the private key and everything. So it has happened to a lot of people. I recommend, if you go this route of running a local node and using the wallet in it, make sure your wallet.dat files are backed up after every single new address you create. Just make sure, otherwise you're really leaving your coins up to chance. You may lose the coins as soon as your computer shuts down or your hard drive malfunctions and so on. So that is definitely a way that a lot of people are using Bitcoin. The Bitcoin reference client, it can handle single signature addresses, and these are the prevalent, the addresses starting with a 1. All they need is one signature. They have one private key, and then you can make a transaction through it. If you want to be more secure and you want to distribute keys across multiple computers and make sure that if one computer gets hacked, all of your coins are not lost, you want to do something called multisignature. What that does is there are multiple keys, and one or more of them keys, of those keys needs to sign a transaction in order for that transaction to be considered valid by the blockchain. So you're mitigating your risk of getting hacked through multi-signature. The Bitcoin reference client can handle it. It's a good learning tool. It's a good learning experience if you want to do it through that. It may not be completely easy for you to do it with a few API calls, but you can definitely get it done with some custom signing software. And that's a great learning experience if you want to build multi-signature functionality that uses the Bitcoin reference client. The other way, and this is just like those services that we talked about, those API services for the Bitcoin protocol, is block.io. What we do is we don't have single signature addresses. We just use multi-signature addresses to ensure that you own the coins by yourself. Like block.io cannot touch the coins. Block.io just signs a transaction alongside you. So the simple multi-signature that we talk about over here is 2 of 2, which is there are 2 keys to every single address. Both keys need to sign a transaction in order for it to be considered valid by the blockchain. One of those keys is yours, we don't know what it is, and one of those keys is ours, and you don't know what it is. So there are some cool things that we do with it, like you can spend coins without getting a confirmation from the blockchain, which is an abstraction on top of the Bitcoin protocol, because essentially block.io is guaranteeing that these coins will never be spent again, so you can spend them again and again and again and again as long as they happen through block.io. These are what we call green addresses. Yes?
Doesn't that mean if block.io loses the keys, then my funds are unspendable?
Yes. So if block.io loses your key in the simple multi-signature example, your coins will be unusable. And there are ways we mitigate this risk by backing up your keys every hour to 4 continents and maintaining an extensive cluster that constantly replicates your API keys and your private keys and all that. The way we mitigate the amount of data that we have to store is, and this is something you can write down and research by yourself. It's called BIP32, the Bitcoin Improvement Protocol Proposal 32, which is a hierarchical deterministic wallet, right? In this proposal, and it's a proposal that is used by a lot of services now, is you need one large key that can generate up to 4.2 million squared addresses from just that one key. Okay, so that as long as we have that key backed up, we're not going to lose your keys, and that is what we do at block.io. And that is how we generate 4.2 million squared different addresses for you with using just one key, and you just have one key. It's not cumbersome at all. So we've taken risks into consideration like that. The other thing you want to do is you want to hold multiple keys by yourself. So for example, if you are building a service on top of block.io, you have one key and your customer has one key and their customer has one key. So you can have this hierarchy where if no one person holds the coin by themselves. This is very, very important in the financial industry, especially with the cybersecurity issues that we have today. You can have block.io hold one key, you can hold one key, your customer can hold one key, their customer can hold one key. And none of them alone control the addresses. Like they need to collude with 2 or 3 more people in order to make a transaction go through. So that is the essential framework, what we call distributed trust. And we can give you the scripts to do that on top of block.io. It's called distributed trust, and you can do stuff like escrow or increase your platform security by distributing keys that are signed by computers across the world and so on. I think with these frameworks that we've given you, you should be able to build whatever you want. It's just going to be a little cumbersome in some cases and easier in others. I can give you an overview of the Bitcoin reference client and the methods that it allows you to use for wallet creation or transaction information and so on. If you guys want to do that, we can do that. And I can give you an overview of the escrow or distributed trust API with block.io as well. Any questions? Do you want to go through the Bitcoin reference client calls? Just whoever wants to develop and do work on their own, they can do it.
I think what we'll do is just move on to the projects for this round, for this
Okay.
module. Any other things you want to say about creating projects, or maybe some project ideas that you've thought about that could, if students haven't gravitated around an idea?
So the toughest thing that I find with developers is when they get into Bitcoin, it's a completely new paradigm, and it's hard to understand. You know, what is a confirmation? What is a block? What is a transaction? Oh my God, I need to understand all of this. And once you start understanding all of that, you lose sight of the bigger picture. What is it that you are trying to do? So you get overcome with stuff like, so I have to make a transaction and then sign it and do all of that. So if you come up with an outline for your project, you start concentrating on how to sign a transaction, and you think that is part of the bigger product that you want to advertise to users. You don't want to do that. Bitcoin is not meant to be a user-facing service. It is meant to be a service used by developers to make stuff easy for other people, right? So if you're thinking about a project, you can think of the outlines of how to do a project. For example, right now, we have over here the project that we talked about last week, a no sign-up payment system for accessing digital resources. So for example, if you go to blockchain.info and you go to the API page and they're like, you know what, you guys spam our API page so much, we can't serve the people that really want to use it. So we're going to charge you a little amount to use this API service. So what they can do is they can use your no sign-up payment system and make sure that you have a token that is validated by blockchain.info without them actually knowing your identity. So if you talk about just this idea and you think about how to implement it, you will start getting into problems like, also, I have to sign this transaction with the SIG P256K1 curve, and this is the parameter, I'll keep it over here. You just get lost in these minutiae that you really don't need to take care of. If you want to, you can just skip that altogether. You should end up with steps like user visits a web page, you create a new address for their IP address, abstract information that it should be as simple as that to create this project for you. You wait until a payment has been received. If the payment is appropriate, you can give the user a token and get it done. Stuff like this, you can do it with the local node, with the Bitcoin reference client. It's super easy to do. Or you can use an online service like block.io. Don't get lost in the minutiae unless you actually want those minutiae to be an end product. That is my only advice. That is my major advice for you as application developers. I can draft up 5 or 6 different projects that go to different cases, like use a local Bitcoin node or use an online service and how to do it. But the steps, I'll need to stop and think about that. If you have a problem with any idea that you're trying to implement and you don't know the big level steps that you want to go through, we're here for you. That's what this time is for. So let us know. I'll be right there in the back. Yes.
One question.
So you mentioned the two kinds, the local and the web APIs. What about just wallets? Like trying to do, like there are, that you can run locally on your machine, modifying that code to get what you want done.
Right. So the question is, you talked about the reference client that can be run as a local node. But what if I just want to use a wallet? Well, if you want to use a wallet, you still have to make sure, you have to validate the transaction on the blockchain to get balances for those wallets, right? So you need to download basically the entire node, the entire blockchain, if you want to run a wallet by yourself. And that is what the Bitcoin reference client does. It downloads the entire blockchain and it populates your wallet.dat file with the transactions that are yours.
SPV clients, right? Like Electrum and so on, they don't do all that.
Yes, there are easier ways to do that with SPV clients and Electrum Wallet and all that, but they're still syncing with the blockchain. It's a good method if you're doing something so critical that you yourself need to be absolutely sure that you are on the right blockchain and you're not on a fork or anything. Yes, those are great tools for that, but still, it's somewhere in between online services and running a complete node by yourself. So on my phone, I won't like to run a complete node with like 30 GB of blockchain data, right? What I would use is a reference client, like for Dogecoin, they have like an SPV client over here. My Cilium is not an SPV client. It is basically an online service that communicates with their servers and gets the unspent transactions and all that. And it looks like it's an SPV client, but it really isn't. Dogecoin, the reference client, that's an SPV client over here. The Bitcoin reference wallet will be an SPV service, which validates on your local device the blockchain that you're on and the transactions you've spent. Anything else?
Hey, I just was curious if you'd give perspective, I mean, on, so you've given this little bit of a block.io focused, and so that's completely fine. So maybe I'll just give the comparison. I mean, you have a different perspective than Ryan this morning. Ryan was talking about, he was telling, it's great if everybody implemented the entire Bitcoin client, right? So I don't know that you necessarily need to be too, you pick your own approach, but I just wanted to point out the difference in approach. Block.io is providing some
Higher level stuff.
higher level stuff.
Yep.
Ryan loves, he's down, getting into details, so they're a little bit different approaches.
Yeah, so, we would love for you to use the actual Bitcoin code and get into the nitty gritty. That's your choice. And if you want to make stuff that could potentially be very impactful, especially in the space right now, you want to implement your own blockchain, you want to implement your own smart contracts that are not going to an intermediary, that is a human, stuff like that, you want to play with the Bitcoin protocol for that. But if all you want to do is accept payments on your website, or stuff like very high level stuff that doesn't want to touch the basic protocol, you have options for that as well. It's really up to you what you want to do. We encourage both, really.
So let's give a big round of applause for Atif Nazir. Great talk. Much appreciated. So we'll have 1 minute for any student projects, and then at the end of that, please go talk to anybody who has an idea that you'd like to work with. If you still don't have an idea and you're still looking for something, Atif might be around here for another 10 or 15 minutes. You can talk to him about some other ideas that he might be able to suggest for you to work on. And hopefully Atif can look at the forum in case you have some ideas or questions for him there as well. So if you haven't introduced yourself on the forum, by the way, thanks for everybody who did introduce themselves today. Just write us something short on the forum just to let people know who you are, and so we can all stay in touch that way as well. So other student projects that you'd like to discuss? There was a few other hands up earlier this morning. Don't everybody come up at once. Anybody else for a student project? A long line is forming to the right here.
Hi everyone, I have an idea, although I think you need some further research. So blockchain is open, that means you have no privacy. So, some blockchain application you need to upload a lot of things, including your user information or your client information, but sometimes you don't want anyone can query it. So I think, I'm wondering, is it possible to make a library that can both do the proof of existence and keep the privacy? Yeah, but I think I just got this idea, but I want to do some further research on it. Yeah.
If you've if you've made a student project, could you just raise your hand if you've talked about one up front here? So these are your project leaders if you want to join a project, if they have any room on their team, go talk to them. And then if you're looking for other team ideas, please talk to Atif. So we'll spend a little time grouping up or figuring out what your project is. If you really want to do one on your own, I guess it'd be nice to kind of pair off with somebody, ideally, right? So you can present together and such. So we'll spend that time, the rest of the class today. We'll sort of wrap up as a group here around 3 o'clock. Okay, and next week, doors will open at 8:30. We'll get started at 9. So thanks for a great Saturday.